Let's turn back the clock about 10 years. June 7th, 2012 to be exact. The Boston Celtics had the Miami Heat on the brink of elimination heading into Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals at home. This is when LeBron James authored the performance of a lifetime to keep their championship aspirations alive, pouring in 45 points on an absurd 73% shooting to force a Game 7. It's funny how history tends to repeat itself because just a decade later, in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, in Boston, facing elimination, Jimmy Butler put on an absolute clinic to keep the Heat alive. So let's take a look at how he did it. It was his savvy off-ball movement and smart positioning that allowed him to make an immediate offensive impact in the beginning of this game. First, on an inbounds play, he floats into the restricted area and seals position for a deep entry, forcing help from the corner and leaving PJ Tucker with a wide open three-pointer. Next time down, he starts on the weak side of this Bam and Lowry two-man action. As Lowry attacks with his dribble, Butler's able to sneak around an unsuspecting Jaylen Brown, and again seals deep position for a laydown and finish at the rim. This off-ball ability isn't just displayed on offense either. At this point, he's legitimately developed into one of the best off-ball defensive wings we've ever seen. He starts this possession defending Brown, who is spotting up in the corner. A Smart and Tatum pick and roll gets Boston the switch they want and allows a dribble penetration. Bam rotates over to cut off a drive all the way to the rim, while Strus slides from the weak side corner to tag Rob Williams in the dunker spot. This leaves Al Horford relatively open, and instead of just taking the jumper, he attacks the closeout with a hard dribble drive and essentially makes Strus a non-factor. Now Miami is playing 4-on-5 defensively. Bam has to stop this drive, Lowry has to take away the interior pass, and Tucker roams off of Smart from the top of the key to hinder any movement going towards the nail. This means it's Jimmy Butler who is left with two defenders to play in between, and he anticipates this kickout pass so perfectly to the point where it looks like it was intended for him, and takes it all the way back for an easy Heat basket in transition. This time it's on the ball where Jimmy does his creating, coming off a high ball screen and shedding Grant Williams in the paint with a spinning layup. I talked about this a bit in my last video, but his dual threat as both an on-ball creator and clever off-ball mover makes him very unpredictable and quite difficult to really scheme for. It's very subtle, but notice how when Lowry starts this drive, Butler waits for Tatum to watch the ball before creeping slowly to a higher position on the perimeter. If we look back to where he was initially, it's night and day on the length of the closeout, and because of how much room he has, this is basically a warm-up triple. Again, he makes a great play defensively here, reading this pick and pop action like a book and shooting into the passing lane to create another fast break. Except Miami isn't quite able to capitalize. Many of their offensive possessions end with these real high quality 3-point shots. This time Jimmy comes off a screen and keeps his dribble live all the way until he's under the basket, drawing multiple defenders and leaving Caleb Martin with all the space in the world. Even though he missed the jumper, this offensive possession was an absolute win. Over the entirety of this season, Martin hit just under 42% of his open 3-point shots, which means that these attempts yielded nearly a 126 offensive rating, equivalent to that of a 63% two-pointer. The process that goes into creating a look like this is successful and leads to great offensive output, which is why the result in just one instance isn't nearly as important. A miscommunication on this next one leaves Butler with a wide open corner 3-pointer of his own, so next time down the floor, instead of letting him shoot, Smart closes that gap. Notice how right when he catches the ball, Martin relocates to the opposite corner, leaving room for a dribble drive and putting himself in a spot to receive a kickout pass for yet another wide open triple. Like I said earlier, a successful process leads to a high quality shot, regardless of the outcome. To me, this next play is a perfect embodiment of the Jimmy Butler experience. He first drives into the paint and picks up his dribble, uses a few pivots to get a better angle for the finish, misses the mark, and collects his own shot attempt. He then slows things down with a live dribble before cutting back across the lane for a drifting mid-range jumper. How about some more phenomenal movement without the ball? Bam Adebayo's pursuit of a shot in isolation forces help from Tatum and leaves a path down the middle of the floor for an easy layup. On this one, it's as a screener where he's able to generate an open look. Boston switching this pick and roll leaves Butler with a recovering defender on his back as he moves towards the paint, forcing Horford to camp near the basket with nobody watching Tucker on the outside. The three-point shot is what kept Miami's offense rolling in the second quarter, and here it's Jimmy again knocking one down from the corner. He clearly felt confident in these looks throughout the game. Off a pick and pop, he's really considering attempting another one as Grant Williams doesn't come all the way out to meet him. Instead, he elects to use the speed advantage he's got in this matchup with a drive that earns himself a pair of free throws. He loves to attack downhill against defenders who are slower than him like this, getting the step on Robert Williams in isolation and converting at the rim with a crafty reverse layup. Back on the defensive end, he continues to make huge plays. Once Horford gets the ball in the corner, Butler slowly creeps in between him and Tatum because he knows that Boston wants to get this ball back out to the top of the key. That puts him in position to intercept the pass and take off down court for another score in transition. The Heat would go on to score 16 points over the next 4.5 minutes, including some Jimmy Butler free throws, which created some separation on the scoreboard nearing the end of the third quarter. With just under 3 minutes to go, Jimmy looked to hunt out his favorite Derek White matchup, getting the switch and resetting for an isolation from the top of the key that results in a pull-up jumper from the elbow. This next one again starts with an initial screen to get Smart switched off of him, and they are successful in doing so when he ends up on the ground. This leaves Butler against Al Horford, and as I mentioned before, he loves to utilize his speed to attack downhill against defenders who aren't quite as quick. Him getting into the heart of the defense like this forces somewhat of an awkward collapse that sees 4 Boston defenders covering relatively the same area. A simple kick out to the corner and a couple extra passes leave the Celtics struggling to recover and result in 3 more points on the board. On their very first offensive possession of the fourth quarter, they run a few off-ball screening and cutting actions, but because there's no advantage being created or any defensive errors, they're unable to generate a good look. With the shot clock running low, Jimmy cuts to the ball in an attempt to bail them out, which he's able to do when Grant Williams leaves his feet on an up fake and steps into his landing zone for a jumper plus the foul. After the made free throw, Boston brings the ball right back into Jimmy's territory. Tatum comes off a screen and Strus plays it in a hedge. This leaves a short window for a dump off to the roll man that Butler instinctively takes away and earns his team an extra possession. Because of the lineup Miami has on the floor, PJ Tucker at the 5 and 4 capable spot-up shooters around Jimmy, there's a lot more room for him to attack the basket. Notice how even when he's got both feet in the paint and Horford on his hip, not one Celtic defender comes anywhere near him. This allows him to stop on a dime and pivot back in the same direction for a turnaround jumper. There's not really much to break down on this play. Jimmy Butler's just clearly feeling it and in an aggressive mode, so when Smart doesn't smother him on the perimeter, he sees it as an opportunity to knock down his 4th of the night. On this next one though, Butler is again ruthlessly hunting for that Derek White switch. Smart does a phenomenal job at getting through the screen 3 different times before Jimmy decides to just attack anyways, lowering his shoulder while coming to a complete stop to create tons of separation for a free 2 points. There's just no way he would exit this game without leaving it all on the floor, win or lose. He wanted to be the one in control of the Heat going down the stretch. Here he comes off another high ball screen, but instead of patiently waiting for that switch, he just explodes around the corner and goes straight at Horford for the and one. Now with 46 seconds left in the game and 2 seconds left on the shot clock with a 4-point lead, Miami has to make something happen from out of bounds. Their version of making something happen is lobbing the ball into Butler and letting him strike a dagger right into the heart of this Boston crowd. In the closing seconds, the Celtics are forced to play the foul game, and one last trip to the line allows Jimmy to mark his 46th and 47 points of the night and put it out of reach. With that performance, Jimmy Butler set a Miami Heat playoff record for most points when facing elimination, outscoring even that infamous LeBron career night. His two-way dominance also saw him joining just Michael Jordan as the only players in NBA history to have multiple 40-point, 4 steal games in a single series. And I already broke down the other of the 2 on my channel if you're interested in checking that one out as well. This was one of the most dominant individual elimination game performances we've ever seen. With their backs against the wall on the road, Jimmy Butler delivered a classic to remember and forced a Game 7 heading back to Miami. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website, podcast, and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you thought of this performance from Jimmy Butler and what you expect to happen in this upcoming Game 7. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.